The phone in your pocket right now is effortlessly outperforming desktop PCs that cost a fortune just a decade ago. It edits 4K video, runs complex on-device AI, and handles massive games with zero lag. But 20 years ago? Phones choked just trying to render a single static web page. What changed the game wasn't actually the display or the megapixel count on the camera. It was a tiny, overlooked piece of silicon running behind the scenes called RAM. This is the complete evolution of mobile memory, from the brick phones that could barely process a text message to the ultra-fast chips pushing to replace your personal computer entirely. Every generation, every architectural shift, every performance leap. Let's look under the hood. Chapter 1. SDRAM. Imagine trying to run TikTok on a phone with less memory than a modern smartwatch. That was reality in the late 1990s. Phones use something called SDRAM, the same basic memory type borrowed from early desktop computers. And they needed almost none of it. Why? Because phones weren't doing anything complicated. No apps, no internet, no YouTube. Your phone's only job was to ring and receive calls. That's it. RAM requirements were so tiny that the hardware itself was designed around this limitation. Simple screen, physical buttons, simple everything. Compare that to today, where opening Instagram alone uses more memory than these entire devices had. But this simplicity couldn't last. The world was demanding more, and the race was about to begin. Chapter 2. DDR SD RAM. As mobile technology evolved into the early 2000s, devices demanded faster memory access, but building an entirely new architecture from scratch was far too expensive. So instead of rebuilding everything from scratch, someone asked a smarter question. What if we sent data twice per clock cycle instead of once? That's literally what DDR means, double data rate. Think of it like a delivery driver. Before DDR, the driver picked up a package, dropped it off, then came back empty. With DDR, the driver picks up on the way there and delivers something on the way back. Same speed, double the output. This doubled performance without doubling the cost. Phones could now handle richer content, better graphics, cleaner audio, smoother games. It wasn't a revolution yet, but the speed race had officially started. Chapter 3. LPDDR1. Now here's the moment that changed everything. Up until now, phones had been borrowing memory technology designed for desktop computers. But engineers finally realized something obvious. Phones are not desktops. Desktops sit on a table and plug into a wall. Phones run on a small battery inside your pocket. So they built something new, LPDDR1. The LP stands for low power, and that one shift in priority, from raw speed to power efficiency, was the birth of true mobile memory. Early smartphones were starting to appear, devices that could browse the web, play music, run basic apps. None of that worked without RAM that was designed to sip power instead of chug it. Mobile memory had finally found its own identity, and it would never go back. Chapter 4. LPDDR2. When the touchscreen smartphone era exploded after 2007, user demand for rich data processing skyrocketed. The industry desperately needed a memory chip that could handle a massive wave of applications, touch interfaces, and background tasks. Enter LPDDR2. Arriving at scale around 2010, this generation was significantly faster, vastly more energy efficient, and capable of tasks older memory couldn't dream of handling, like loading complex web pages with high-res images and running smooth UI animations. It powered the legendary devices that defined the early Android and iOS boom. Nobody was making commercials about the specific RAM inside their device, but without the efficiency of LPDDR2, the smartphone revolution would have stalled out due to overheating and terrible battery life. Chapter 5. LPDDR3. Remember when switching between two apps meant watching the screen freeze while the second app reloaded entirely from scratch? Early smartphones simply couldn't keep multiple programs open in the background because they lacked the necessary memory bandwidth. LPDDR3 solved that precise bottleneck. This generation provided high-speed data channels that allowed operating systems to keep multiple heavy applications suspended in a live state. Suddenly, multitasking felt seamless and instant. This internal upgrade arrived right as mobile gaming and global social media platforms began to scale up dramatically. The shift from constant app reloads to instant switching might seem minor now, but it was the exact moment handheld devices started to feel like actual computers. Chapter 6. LPDDR4. One day, Someone looked at their phone camera and thought, what if this shot 4K video? And RAM engineers had to scramble. Because 4K video is not like taking a photo. Every single second of footage is a massive wave of data crashing through your phone's memory system. LPDDR4 was built to handle it. Faster architecture, more bandwidth, more data flowing per second than ever before. But this wasn't just about video. Phones were becoming professional cameras, multi-lens systems, portrait mode, night mode, HDR photography. Your phone had quietly turned into a content creation studio that fit in your pocket. Shot on iPhone stopped being a joke. It became a real creative statement. Chapter 7. LPDDR5X. While standard LPDDR4 delivered incredible data speeds, it also generated significant thermal heat and drained battery percentages faster than consumers liked. Instead of chasing raw performance numbers for the next iteration, engineers focused entirely on power optimization, creating LPDDR4X. This variant maintained identical data rates but lowered the core I/O voltage significantly. The real-world result? Devices ran noticeably cooler under heavy load, and battery endurance extended by an extra hour or two without needing a physically larger phone chassis. Chapter 8. LPDDR5. Mobile games used to mean Angry Birds. Then, Genshin Impact launched, and everything changed. Suddenly, mobile games had console-quality graphics, massive open worlds, and real-time physics, and the phones running them needed to keep up. LPDDR5 was the answer, nearly twice the speed of LPDDR4, while also being more power efficient. It was built for phones with 90 Hz and 120 Hz screens, where the display refreshes so fast that even a tiny stutter in memory feels like a broken experience. But gaming wasn't the only story. LPDDR5 also enabled the first real AI workloads to run directly on your device, the beginning of a much bigger revolution that was coming next. Phones weren't just competing with other phones anymore. They were starting to compete with the Nintendo Switch, with gaming laptops. LPDDR5 made that fight real. Chapter 9. LPDDR5X. For a long time, features like facial recognition, voice dictation, or smart photo editing didn't actually happen inside your device. Your phone merely packaged the data, sent it out to a remote cloud server, and waited for an answer to come back over the internet. LPDDR5X completely changed that workflow. By offering massive bandwidth leaps, it allowed complex large language models and neural networks to run natively on local hardware. This enabled instant real-time translation, on-device generative photo tools, and voice assistants that operate entirely without an active internet connection. Chapter 10. LPDDR5T. Instead of waiting around for a brand new generation of architecture to be finalized, SK Hynix decided to push the existing standard to its absolute physical limits, introducing LPDDR5T, where the T stands for turbo. Operating at an astonishing 9.6 gigabits per second, this highly optimized version actually outperformed many early standard LPDDR5X configurations, hitting flagship devices at the time. Chapter 11. LPDDR6. Now the industry is transitioning toward LPDDR6. This upcoming generation isn't just about minor speed bumps. It is explicitly architected to support advanced, real-time localized AI models and immersive mixed reality applications. It also points directly to a massive shift in personal computing, the eventual decline of the traditional entry-level laptop. Within the next few years, your smartphone will easily pack the processing power of a dedicated workstation. You'll be able to plug it into an external monitor, pair a keyboard, and run a full desktop environment directly from your pocket. Every single breakthrough in this memory timeline has been building toward that exact convergence. So, which memory type is powering your phone right now? Drop your phone model and its RAM generation in the comments below. If this breakdown made something click, smash that like button and subscribe right now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.